Welcome back to Hytale Lore. We are not in the super flat world today. We are in the actual real version of Orbis that we currently have. Because today we are talking Zone 1 and the creatures within. Now, most of this should already be old knowledge for most of you. But we're going to go over a couple points just in case some of you somehow don't know the situation in Zone 1 yet, and then we're going to hit a few new pieces and a couple of theories that I have and a couple ideas that I have. I'm not going to lie, it is kind of insane to me flying through here after having been so deep in so much world gen work, and I'm looking at this now and I'm like, this is nothing compared to what people have made. So, let's see if we can find some inhabitants. One thing I've noticed, I'm curious to see if this is other people's experience too. There's not a whole lot of Quebec homes that are easy to find. Kind of wish they were more populous. It really doesn't look like there's one nearby for us to access, so we're going to go fly over to, or teleport over in fact, to a old ruined building right here. So inside of Zone 1 currently, we have, I would say, 3 primary factions. We have the Quebecs, of course. Here's a Quebec Elder. We have the Trorks as well. And then lastly, we have our skeletons. So here's the gist of this, right? Used to be that this land was covered in a human civilization. We've theorized about this in other videos. Feel free to check out some old videos if you would like to, but we theorized about the fact that there's a track in the game that's called the Knights of the Broken Order, and this is something like a theme that is referenced repeatedly within the game, where there used to be humans that worshipped Gaia. Who is basically this sleeping goddess that we, in this early access version of the game, are trying to restore memories to, more or less, to kind of connect her to the real version of her world, where we're in kind of like a fragmented, partial version of it, and I believe that the idea is for, over the course of the chapters, we build up into the full main release of Orbis, as it actually is meant to be experienced. Which is, I think, a very clever way to kind of disguise the early access process and the whole process of, like, reclaiming the game and, redesigning it and its progression. But the Quebecs, obviously, are meant to be your first positive faction that you interact with when you enter the game. We've got several versions of them so far, several different types of them, but we know that there's still a lot left to come, and they are meant to have a life cycle that begins with them as these little baby seedlings until they eventually root themselves as... Oops, what is this? What? Show variants. Interesting. Never saw that before. Never actually noticed what that meant before. Ancient, there we go, there we go. Eventually they root themselves and they become these big old tree people. So this is kind of their life cycle. They begin as seeds that drop off of the trees that they eventually grow into, and then it looks as though the trees are meant to kind of impart their knowledge of their lives upon the young ones that are growing up. And it looks like if they keep to this piece of the concept art, and we know the concept art is kind of an unsteady thing to base things off of right now because so much is changing. But there should be kind of a version of this that is like I don't know. I guess imagine something about the Trork's size, but it's like a hunched over walking small tree that is designed to take the place of this sort of tree singer as an elder, a source of wisdom and direction for the rest of the Quebec community. Really, really lovely creatures. One of my favorite parts of the game. And then, of course, we have the Trorks, which serve as an counterpart to the Quebecs. And if you know the infamous pizza video, then you know that the Trorks do not have fondness for the Quebecs. They don't seem to have that same connection to nature or to Gaia. They seem to do a lot of chopping down the nature they live around. They live inside of, dead pieces of trees, of bones, whereas the Quebecs live within living trees. And kind of coexist with the world around them. Instead of taking from it, they provide. And then lastly, we have the skeletons that were part of this human civilization that now we experience the ruins of. With kind of hints of this sort of schism, the Knights of the Broken Order, where it looks like in some form or another, at least some of the humans turned away from Gaia and led to this cataclysmic event, or maybe series of cataclysmic events. That's all stuff for other videos. We've talked about a lot of it. We can talk about it more in the future if it's something that people enjoy. But basically, now all we have left are the skeletons, the remnants of what came before. I do want to throw something out to you guys, especially those of you who enjoy theorizing. We know that the skeletons are the deceased people who used to live here. What are these? Are these just really large humans? Do we think that they are, I don't know, something like the horns that they have really do remind me of the void spawn. I know they're tilted the wrong way. It's just like a kind of similar body plan that we have going on here. I don't actually think these are the same creatures, to be clear. But interesting. These sort of larger creatures all share a very similar body plan between them. All the other skeletons are humans, or we have like the floating head of a human. And obviously we have like a couple exceptions, like there's a skeleton dog, but this is a humanoid that looks larger than a human. Where do we think that came from? Any thoughts, any theories, any ideas? I would love to hear. Speaking of thoughts and theories and ideas, before we continue, if you did not know, joined Hytale SMP, which began, I don't know, a week ago, a week and a half ago, something like that. I have the first day footage of the sort of bingo game that everybody played together. If you want to see that chopped up on the VOD channel, let me know in the comments below. I know there's a couple people that want to see it. I'm not going to cut down an enormous bulk of footage for a couple people. So, if more of you want it, let me know, and I will make it happen. I will make it a viewable thing that is not just a VOD on twitch.tv. But, in the meantime, these are the factions that we currently have. We understand them in the game. Obviously, there's a lot of room to grow with them. So much more that can be done with all of these in terms of turning them into living factions that can interact with one another. Like the Trorks pursuing the Quebecs, or the Quebecs, I don't know, like planting themselves into trees and actually progressing through a life cycle that you would be able to witness the same individual kind of move through these different stages of life and then eventually bear seedling children of their own to go populate more Quebec towns. All things that I would really love to see. But what I want to focus on the most, because I think that's what we enjoy the most over here on this channel, is the pieces that are yet to come. So we have a few creatures that look like they will eventually fit into the overall ecosystem of Zone 1 as the game development progresses. Now, to clarify, these are creatures that we have the models for in the game. They don't currently interact with anything. They don't currently move. They have no... they're just shells. They're husks, right? We also don't know what else is necessarily planned to be added, particularly because any sorts of things like concept art that we did have to go off of, we can't completely rely on anymore because we know so much of it is in flux. So we're just going to focus on the pieces that are in, and then I'll tack on a couple hopes that I have at the end in terms of things that could be added. So we have... this creature here that is called a Grubel. Like I said, they're just a husk. This is just a model. It's a skin. There's nothing inside of it. It cannot think. It cannot move. It cannot interact. But obviously, it looks kind of turtle-ish, like the little bits we have in here that look like the legs poke out of this stony shell. But it's a piece of rock. It's a piece of stone, and it does look like it is. Can we get just like regular old piece of stone in here? There we go. There's a lot of stone variants in this game, which I love, but it looks like this is what it's based off of. It's just regular old stone. This is a stone creature. It looks a little bit freaky, but follow me for a second. Walk with me. Walk with me. These guys are sentient representations of trees inside of Zone 1. Zone 1 is the element of earth. So backing up once again, just real quick, if you did not know, the different zones correspond with different elements. So Zone 1 corresponds with earth, so, you know, the very earth itself, and then things like trees, plants, right? Green matter. So we have the Quebecs that represent the sentient trees. And I kind of personally interpret this as Gaia kind of imbuing her own presence into the world, right? She is kind of like the elements personified, all combined into one, and is sentient, and so then that sentience kind of creeps into other parts of the world as well. So we have it in the trees here, and then here we have it in the rocks as well. Only makes sense that these would end up inside of Zone 1, though I could see them like popping up in the undergrounds of other zones as well, but Zone 1 makes sense. Zone 1 makes a lot of sense. We have the tree people, we have the rock people, and then we have also a model that we can access inside of the game. We have the Mushy. The Mushies are these adorable, adorable little mushroom creatures. I know that there's people out there who have already added AI to both of these. To be clear, I don't mean generative AI. I mean like the actual mob AI that's used in these games. But I know that there's already versions of them that walk around and do stuff, which are very cool. I know that I encountered Mushies day one on the Hytale SMP, and they tried to kill me. They were not friendly. I kind of imagine that in the actual game they will be friendly. I don't know. And then, of course, there's one more that I've neglected to include so far. Actually, kind of two more that I've neglected to include. We have the Clops that live underground in their lovely little holes. And we have the goblins as well that live underground. Both of these underground dwellers. I love both of them so much. I love both of them so much. And there's a little bit of similarity, in my opinion, between the facial structure of the Clops here and the facial structure of the Grubel. I would kind of love... I know that there's going to be Clops miners. Those are things that we can see. I think they're just in the model section. Let me see. Oh, no. No, it looks like there's one here. They look a little broken. Like, I don't really see an eyeball in there. Unless that's how they're supposed to look, and the eyeball's, like, obscured through the lens. But they're miners, right? They go digging in the mines. It's kind of a cool idea to have them maybe using these creatures like, I don't know. Maybe the Grubel pulls like mine carts around for them or something like that, something to that degree. That would be adorable. But it looks like all of these creatures eventually will be interacting in Zone 1's underground. So the Clops, the Goblins, the Grubels, and then above ground we would have the Mushies interacting with the Quebecs here. Here I get to the point where I begin to kind of see the opportunities for more things to add into this region. When you're playing a game like this, especially one that is going in the we're getting some framiness. When you're playing a game like this, especially one that is geared toward this like high fantasy feel that Hytale is, when you begin the game is when you get the opportunity to encounter the light-hearted elements of the world, the whimsy, if you will. And then as you progress through the game, you encounter the more serious and intense elements, which is perfectly reflected inside of Hytale. I mean, when you begin in Zone 1, you have all of these gentle creatures to interact with, and the scary creatures that you have aren't that difficult to manage. When you get into Zone 2, you have more scary elements, and then you have positive ones like the Farins that can still turn on you, and that continues to ramp up as you progress. Zone 3 gets more intense until you hit Zone 4, where everything is adversarial and gets more powerful as well. So in Zone 1, we have our opportunity to explore whimsy. When I'm walking through Zone 1, and I'm picturing how it can look with all of the new world gen and everything else included in, what I want is to experience more of those dynamic living world elements. And I don't mean that just in the standard living world way that Hytale has meant in the past, as in the different factions, the different mobs get the chance to actually interact with each other and affect the world. I mean that in terms of the world is literally living. As in, like, you walk into the forest and you get to encounter Quebecs in their homes. They consider the trees to be alive. They don't want you to raise an axe against them. They're trying to keep this place safe, preserved, green, lush, beautiful. You walk between the Quebec towns and you find these little clumps of mushrooms, and among them you find the Mushies living in little mushroom towns and doing a very similar thing there. Maybe there are chances for you to get small bits of, like, helpful magic or, like, herbal elements within the mushy town that can kind of help you progress through the game if you align yourself with those gentle creatures. And then I want to continue taking that to the next level. That's what I would love to see. I'd love to walk through little places like this where there are all these bushes and one of the bushes pops out of the ground and there's a head beneath it, and it starts walking around like a, what are those called? Like a mandrake root, right? You pull the mandrake out, there's a little baby at the bottom, that sort of thing, where everything is very, like, vivacious and alive, all in accordance with nature. So little bush creatures that could pop up, or like little flower creatures that could pop up, or something like that. Also in the Hytale SMP, we played with a mod that added little fairies that would go around, and you could capture them in bottles and use them as light sources. But all of those things, they add this, like, little touch of magic and dynamic to the world where you want to continue to explore, because not only what fun creatures and interactions are you going to have, but what could you get out of that? Like, what sort of, like, herbal instruments would you be able to get from the mushies? Or maybe if you were to follow, like, a little mandrake creature, it would lead you to, like, a small underground cave where you could begin mining because it's looking for a new place to go and bury itself, right? Ways like that that will encourage the player to interact with elements of the world because they'll lead them to more exploration. And all of that can fit within that framework of Gaia's influence on nature and on the elements, where her presence, her touch on the world has made pieces of it like this come alive, where they're really interacting with the player and interacting with each other. I just think it would be absolutely, absolutely magical. The last thing that I wanted to throw in here, just because I thought that it was very fun and I haven't really seen this pointed out before, they've added bees. I don't know if these spawn in the game. I've never seen them spawning in the game. But if we go in here, let's spawn a few of them. Spawn 5 altogether. There's bee swarms. I don't think we have anything in the game in terms of, like, beehives or any. Let me check before I. Let me check. We don't. So presumably these are going to be added in somewhere else, right? Like, they don't actually have a place to live. I don't mean somewhere else as in a different zone. I mean as in, like, a different part in the game progression. They don't have a place to live. They don't have a part in the game. But oh my god. Bees. That's 100% got to be a Zone 1 thing. Imagine then creatures in Zone 1 who are aligned with Gaia, like the Quebecs, engaging in those parts of world. Give us a beekeeper Quebec who's keeping bees, and you can go to the beekeeper Quebec in order to get honey. And I don't know, the honey, it's sugar, and it gives you a temporary stamina boost or something like that, right? Just a random example. Just a random example, but you get the idea. So many different ways that these things can be incorporated into one another, and I think that it works the best if you bring them all back to these notable factions for the players to interact with. What I would also really love to see is better POI access and navigation, as in you spawn into the game and nearby you there will always be a Quebec town where you can go to get your bearings, get a sense for the world. You get to see the Quebecs interacting, like the beekeeper Quebec and the ranger Quebec who warns you about the Trorks that are staying nearby, and the Quebec who has a relationship with the Mushies and says if you want like herbal remedies, go down to the Mushies and talk with them, and then the Quebec who tells you about the Clops that are mining underground and the resources that you can get from them, but beware of the goblins, and maybe go get a chance to read the Clops libraries because they've cultivated knowledge about the other 3 zones. All of those things add to this like incredibly rich tapestry that the player could experience if the game continues to go in that high fantasy route that it's currently angling for. Monologue done. Tell me what you guys think about the creatures currently inside of Zone 1. What would you want to see added that doesn't currently exist? What sort of interactions would you want to have with the creatures in this part of the world? And how do you envision that changing as the world progresses? Ooh, here's a Quebec town. Progresses into Orbis 2.0. Oh my god, a bird keeper Quebec? Bird, I'm sorry. Just, oh my god, a Quebec who goes around and gathers the fireflies into the lanterns? There's endless opportunities here. Endless opportunities to create a rich, vivid world. Now, as always, if you enjoy talking about this stuff, feel free to hop into the Discord. We've got a lore channel where people chat about it. We also, as this video goes live on YouTube, there will also be a poll posted on the posts tab of this channel at this time. So if you want to go vote on what we talk about next week, then go drop your vote in that poll. And other than that, I'll see you all next week for some Hytale lore. In the meantime, happy hightailing.